We are in favor of using the Chinese yuan for settlements between Russia, Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Those are the words of Vladimir Putin, where he described the talks held on 20th March with Chinese President Xi Jinping. You know, this whole BRICS thing, de-dollarizing the world. These talks are basically the talk of the year. Everybody's talking about how the dollar will be dethroned, especially here in Africa. In fact, here in Africa, the politics is moving towards east and farther away from the west. And let me tell you something. I know this for a fact, that the West have been screwing us, black people, both here in Africa and in the diaspora for the past 400 years. I know this for a fact. But here's the thing. What makes you think that Russia and China won't be the same as them? In fact, South Africa has been asked by the ICC to arrest Vladimir Putin immediately he lands in South Africa for the BRICS meeting later on this year. But South Africa is reluctant because, just like South Africa and some other African countries, they are willing to work and to de-dollarize the dollar and to dethrone the dollar, which is not an issue. But today's does it make sense is this. Does it make sense for Africans to move from one slave master to another? Does it make sense for us to say that Brazil, Russia, India, China will be fair in sharing power with South Africa and all the other African countries in the world? Peace and blessings, everybody. I go by the name Sensical Sense. Welcome to Does It Make Sense, the show that inspires you to think. Well, today we are going to look at this BRICS. We're going to look at B, R, I, and C. And then at the end, we are going to ask ourselves, is it fair? Is it a wise choice for us to move to this BRICS deal? And is it a wise choice for our economies to join these set of individual countries, yet they have a bad history and a bad present life economically with the Africans who live in their country? Let's look at Russia. You know, with Russia, I don't want to go deep. Let me just be straight with you. If Putin is willing to kill people who look like him, if Putin is willing to kill Ukrainians to get more power, economically and politically, what makes you think he won't do the same thing to Africa? What makes you think he won't do the same thing for Africa if he's willing to kill his fellow white people for more power? What makes you think he will do the same thing if he has a choice to kill black people in order for him to get more power as a Russian president and for Russia? Think about that. You know, we just jump into things without thinking. Let's look at India. India, if you look at India, the melanated Indians, the untouchables, do you know how they are being treated? In fact, according to National Geographic, the untouchables are relegated to the lowest jobs and live in constant fear of being publicly humiliated, paraded naked, beaten, and sexually harassed with impunity by upper caste Hindus seeking to keep them in their place. The article goes on to say the untouchables are 90% of poor Indians and 95% of illiterate Indians. It's even fatal for an untouchable to be in the midst of what they call upper caste Indians. This is crazy. This is crazy and insane. And let me just go to a detour and tell you that Gandhi was a racist. Mahatma Gandhi was a racist. I don't like how black people like putting. Do you know how many Mahatma Gandhi pictures I've seen in people's houses? And then next to that picture is a Dr. King picture. That is that is sick. Gandhi was a racist. In fact, when he was living in South Africa, he said black people are troublesome, very dirty, and live like animals. When he was living in South Africa. So don't tell me anything about India. In fact, here in Kenya, let me tell you something. If there are people who I know very well are Indians, I schooled I schooled with Indians. In fact, our school was majorly owned by Indians when I was in primary, what you guys call elementary, whatever. Our school was mainly owned by Indians. Indians are some of the most, listen, and I understand it because when it comes to because Indians, when they try to settle in a place, they build their own infrastructure. They build their own hospitals, schools, homes, and they concentrate them into one area. But here's the thing, they practice segregation here in Kenya. I don't know if it's in other countries, but they sure do here in Kenya. What do? They build structures. And for example, if an Indian owns a building of apartments, majority of people who will live in that apartments will be Indians. And I've actually known a couple of people who have sought placement in those apartments, and those Indians are saying, "No, we are full." But you know, they're not full. What they're trying to say is that we're not going to sell this apartment to you because you're black. It's happening in Nairobi. I've talked to a lot of people who tell me this. So they practice segregation on African soil. And so if they're robbing us economically, if they are robbing the Africans, the melanated Africans who they call the untouchables in India, and if they practice segregation on African soil, what makes you think that they will all of a sudden catch the Holy Ghost and share power economically and fairly to African people in this BRICS thing, this whole BRICS deal? Think. Don't just jump into things. Don't be excited. Think. Let's take a look at Brazil. Brazil is the country that has the most Africans outside of Africa. The largest group of Africans outside of Africa live in Brazil, 97 million Africans. But black Brazilians earn 57% of what white Brazilians earn. So if a white Brazilian earns 100,000, chances of a black Brazilian earning 57,000 is high. And so, according to Al Jazeera, black Brazilians suffer the worst of police violence, having limited access to education. 64% of them are unemployed. 64%. Limited representation in the power structure, in politics, and of course, poor housing. So if Brazil is oppressing, economically castrating, economically oppressing Africans in Brazil, what makes you think that they'll share power with Africa in this BRICS deal? They're doing it in their own country. They're not giving black Brazilians an equal opportunity to the white Brazilians. They're not treating them equally. They're not treating them equally economically. So let me ask you a question. What makes you think that they'll change their mind when this BRICS deal kicks off and becomes official in full effect? We just jump through things without thinking. That's the problem with us. Let's take a look at China. China, listen, I can spend the whole day talking about China and how they're economically, degrading Africa and economically sabotaging Africa. But I'll try to keep it brief. China holds 20% of Africa's debt. 20%. And they lend African countries loans with super high interest rates, because their goal is not for these African countries to pay back. Their goal is for them to have power and control over them. Okay? Which is why most of these loans are used for building infrastructural products like roads, railways, buildings. But here's the thing. Those projects are not being built by African people. At least most of them. Some of them are, but most of them are not built by African people. Most of them are built by Chinese workers. In fact, 42% of the contracts that are given to build these projects are being given to Chinese workers. 42%. Is that economically fair? Is that economically fair? Let me go furthermore. The Chinese superiority coming from them owing us a lot of money is spewing a lot of hatred and is spewing a lot of unfairness in Africa. Let me give you an example. In Malawi, if you watch the BBC documentary, where these Chinese videographers are going to villages, plucking school children, putting them in front of a camera, and making them sing Mandarin songs, making them say Mandarin phrases. Now, these kids don't know Mandarin, but these Chinese videographers are choreographing them to say them, because these videos sell so highly back in China. And in exchange, these kids are being given 100 kwachas, some few coins. They're exploiting children in the villages to make these videos in Mandarin so that they can go sell them in China. Now, if you look at what those kids are saying and what those kids are being forced to say in front of camera, and if these kids don't understand Mandarin, so they're just being told what to say. But if you look at that documentary and if you really translate what those kids are being forced to say, you will literally cry. You will break down. Oh, I am a monkey. They are being forced to say racist things in Mandarin, but because these kids don't understand and because they're being given money, they're forced to do it. That's what's happening. Furthermore, here in Kenya, there have been many incidences of Chinese businesses here in Kenya mistreating workers. In fact, there was a Chinese boss who was literally whipping Kenyan workers. Like whipping them, literally. I'm not even joking. This is real. And that superiority comes from them. The attitude is that we owe, you guys owe us, so we own you. You haven't paid up, so in exchange, we own you. Speaking of we own you, let me go furthermore. And, I can talk about this all day. Let me go furthermore and let's go deep into what they're doing to our economy. You see, for example, let's say Kenya has fish, right? Kenya sells fish. Now, the cost of production to produce and sell this fish is high, which is why fish in Kenya is, expensive. But here's the thing. Because China is coming with their fish from China, they put their prices in very low amounts. They do this strategically so that they can sell more, so that they can put the local businesses out of business. That's what they're doing with local African products. Many local African products, and especially the countries that are owing China, many African products are being put out of business because the Chinese products are cheap and they're coming to flood the African market, and they're putting African businesses out of business because people are going to go for the cheap products. and they're putting the local businesses out of business. That's what's happening. That is economic sabotage. So if China is doing all that and some more, and if they're economically sabotaging us as African people here in Africa, in our countries, on our African soil, what makes you think they won't do the same when they finally gain power, when the Chinese one gets power, and when finally the BRICS deal when this BRICS deal actualizes itself? You think they'll be fair to Africans after what I've just told you, and some more I haven't even told you? My POV today is very, very simple. It's always simple. We have no friends. We have no friends as African people and black people all over the world. I want you to understand this. We have no friends. Our only friend is us. We only have us. And I want us to get this fact in our skulls, because we don't understand that. We always are looking for non-African allies to come and help us, but they end up either shortchanging us or underperforming us. And so let me tell you something. We have no friends. The only friends we have is each other. Because look, how are you telling me that we are trusting British, Russia, India, and China? And even I saw a video of Putin holding a picture of, was it a picture or I think it was a monument of Black Jesus. And and black people were like, oh, you see, Putin knows the truth. Putin knows. Just because he held a picture of Black Jesus, it doesn't mean that he cares about you. It doesn't mean that he all of a sudden cares about this black messiah, and it doesn't mean that he cares about black power. He's lowering you in. This is strategy. We always fall for stupid things like this. That's the problem with us, black people. Let us stop this BRICS nonsense and let us finally think about how we can form a common currency as African people. And it's not even hard. I mean, look at the euro. There have been attempts to build a common European currency before 1989, but the serious stages happened in 1989 and beyond. And by 2002, the euro started functioning. And if you look at the euro now, it is slightly stronger than the dollar. When economists, some economists thought that the euro is not going to be stronger than the dollar. It's still new. Now look, the euro is literally slightly stronger than the dollar, because they knew that Europe knew that they're stronger together. That is what Africa needs to do. We need to start processes of amalgamating and forming one currency. Like, for example, in Europe, France, Germany, and all these big economies of Europe, they are the ones who started using the euro first, before smaller economies like Latvia, like Malta joined in later on. And that's what we need to do. South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, Nigeria, we join in first before Rwanda, Burundi, Eswatini, and Lesotho. Now those other countries can come in first after they see how we function with it. That's what we should think about. Not thinking about how we can move from the west to the east, how we can be accommodated in BRICS, how we can squeeze ourselves in BRICS. We are wasting our time. That's why every day I keep on saying, think before it becomes illegal. I've just told you what Brazil is doing to their Africans in Brazil. I've just told you what Russia is doing to their own Ukrainians, and if they can do that to the people who look like them to get more power, what do you think they'll do to you, African? I've just told you what India is doing to the Africans in India who they call the untouchables. And what India is doing to African countries, literally performing segregation in African countries on African soil. I've just told you what China is doing when they're economically sabotaging us, when they're putting local businesses out of business by selling us their cheap goods. They know what they're doing and they're economically sabotaging us. So they know what they're doing, and you want to tell me that we will get a fair deal in this BRICS thing? Give me a break. Give me a damn break. Please, let us think about forming our own currency. Otherwise, thank you for watching. I just want to say that less is more, and think before it becomes illegal. I'll always say that till this show ends, which is in a very long time. Okay? Think before it becomes illegal. See you on the other side.